My no-good sister-in-law decided to spread a nasty lie that I'd had an affair with her, all in some twisted attempt to wreck my marriage and drag my name through the mud. But I didn't just sit there and take it. I pushed back hard, and when I laid everything out, people didn't know what to say. They were stunned. I'm 28 now, married to my wife who's 25. We've been together for around 5 years and officially tied the knot 2 years ago. Let me tell you, my wife's the kind of woman you dream of building a life with. She's got a heart of gold, always thinking of others. Honestly, she'd hand you her last buck without blinking if you needed it more than she did. She's loyal, kind, and just solid through and through. I really believed, up until all this blew up, that we had a great thing going. We live in a small town, the kind where folks remember your name and everyone knows what you had for lunch. I run a business here. It's not some massive operation, but it's successful enough that most people in town know who I am. And in a place like this, your reputation is everything. I've worked hard to earn people's trust, to be known as someone who keeps his promises and stands by his word. That's exactly why this whole situation with Mary, my wife's sister, drives me crazy. She's been hellbent on tearing me down, all based on complete lies. And for what? To get attention? Out of spite? I still don't fully get why she did it, but the chaos she stirred up was next level. Looking back now, I probably should have noticed the signs. My wife and Mary were never really close, which struck me as odd in the beginning. They're only a couple of years apart, and you'd figure they'd have that typical sisterly bond. But nope. My wife told me early on that Mary was always kind of a handful. She had this habit of turning everything into a spotlight moment for herself, even when it had nothing to do with her. Back when they were kids, Mary used to spread rumors about my wife, all to get people to pay attention to her. Stuff like, she doesn't care about anyone but herself, or she bullied me because I got a better grade. Petty things that made it sound like she just couldn't stand seeing my wife succeed or be happy. My wife chalked it up to plain old jealousy and tried to move on. At the time, I didn't think too much of it either. After all, she was her sister, not mine, and I figured as long as she wasn't causing problems for us, it wasn't really my business. But even back when we were still dating, I noticed some odd behavior. Nothing huge at first, just little things that made me feel uneasy. Mary had this strange way of always popping up when my wife and I were out together. We'd be grabbing coffee or eating at a local diner, and suddenly there she was, acting all surprised. "Oh, I didn't know you'd be here. Mind if I join you?" "Yeah, sure, just a coincidence, except it happened more times than made sense." And then there were the texts. Random, kind of out-of-nowhere messages that didn't cross the line exactly but still felt off. Stuff like, "You're such a good guy, my sister's lucky to have you," or "Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you ever need anything." Friendly on the surface, but it rubbed me the wrong way. Why was she texting me and not her own sister? What made it weirder was she'd delete the texts after sending them. I'd see the notification pop up, but later, when I checked my phone again, the messages were gone. Not just once, this happened a lot. Like she didn't want anyone to see what she was saying. I eventually told my wife about it, and she just shrugged. "That's just Mary being Mary," she said. "She always has to be involved in everything. Just ignore her." So that's what I tried to do. I ignored the messages, brushed off her weird comments, and focused on my relationship. I kept my distance from Mary whenever I could. But once we got engaged, she kicked things up a notch. Suddenly she was inserting herself into everything even more. She'd make these little jabs like, "Wow, getting married already? That's fast," or "Hope you're ready, marriage isn't all sunshine and rainbows, you know." My wife would roll her eyes and tell me not to give her the satisfaction of a reaction, but it was clear her sister wasn't thrilled about the two of us settling down. Mary would even show up to our place unannounced, barging in right when I had planned a quiet evening with my fiancé. My wife thought Mary was just being clingy. But to me, it felt like she was trying to wedge herself between us. After a while, I started thinking maybe this wasn't just some sisterly drama. Maybe she was jealous, not just of our relationship, but of everything about my wife. See, my wife's always been independent and driven. She works hard and doesn't rely on anyone. Mary's the total opposite. She expects life to hand her what she wants, and when that doesn't happen, she acts like the world's out to get her. My wife told me stories from when they were kids, how Mary would throw tantrums if my wife got a new toy or some praise from their parents. It was like she couldn't stand not being the center of attention. Still, I figured she was just one of those people who always needed to feel important. Annoying, sure, but not dangerous. Man, was I wrong. When our wedding day finally came around, my wife and I were excited as hell to say our vows and start our life together. But wouldn't you know it, Mary found a way to make it about her. She walked in wearing this loud, flashy dress that looked suspiciously close to a bridal gown. People were whispering about it, wondering if she hadn't gotten the memo on the dress code. My wife tried to laugh it off, pretending it didn't get to her, but I could see it in her eyes. She was irritated. And that wasn't even the worst of it. During the reception, Mary kept dragging me aside to talk about the most random crap, her job, her future plans, stuff that had no place at our wedding. At one point, she even joked, "Don't forget about me now that you're a married man." It was bizarre. I just forced a smile and walked away. After the wedding, things cooled off a bit. Mary faded into the background for a while, and I honestly thought maybe she was finally letting go of whatever grudge she had. Life got good again. My wife and I settled into marriage, started building our home, planning our future. Things felt right. Mary was still around, but at least she wasn't stirring up trouble. Or so I thought. Or at least, that's what I thought. Looking back, I really should have trusted my gut. All those little warning signs I shrugged off? They were just the opening act. I had no idea how far Mary was willing to go to force her way into our lives and tear things apart from the inside. If I'd known then what I know now, I'd have drawn the line a whole lot sooner. But you know how it goes, hindsight's always crystal clear. Turns out Mary wasn't finished with us. Not even close. She was just lying in wait, keeping quiet until the perfect moment to stir up trouble. And when that moment finally came, she went all in. Things took a turn when Mary ended up moving into our home. I was already uneasy about it, but I didn't want to seem cold or suspicious, especially not to my wife. She was feeling bad for her sister. Mary had just come out of a messy breakup and was clearly a wreck emotionally. Being the compassionate soul she is, my wife didn't hesitate to offer her a place to stay. She meant well, she always does. That's who she is. She sees someone hurting and she steps in to help. At first, Mary kept a low profile. For the first week or so, she mostly hung around in the guest room or watched TV quietly in the living room. I hoped maybe this time would be different. But that hope didn't last long. It didn't take long for her true self to show. She had this habit of wedging herself into spaces where she didn't belong, like she needed to be part of every moment, even the ones that weren't about her. It was like she was desperate to prove she mattered more than she actually did. I should have said something earlier, but I didn't want to cause a fight or make things harder for my wife. So I kept quiet. At first, it was small things. Subtle but annoying. Like when my wife and I would sit down to relax together on the couch, Mary would drop right in between us like it was totally normal, just start chatting like we were some trio of best friends. If we were having a quiet dinner, she'd suddenly appear with a story about her day even though we hadn't asked. Always pushing her way into our time together. My wife just said, "That's Mary. She needs attention." But I knew better. This wasn't just someone being needy. This was something else. And she didn't limit her antics to just us. Whenever I hosted dinners, whether casual get-togethers or something more professional with business friends, Mary always managed to throw things off. She'd show up dressed like she was headed to some red carpet event, laugh way too loud at every little thing, interrupt conversations to steer them toward herself, and worst of all, start asking my colleagues for their phone numbers. I'll never forget one night in particular. I'd invited a few longtime friends over, guys I trust, guys I work with. We were enjoying dinner, just catching up, when Mary suddenly came barging in, pretending she'd spilled a drink on herself. She made this big, dramatic scene out of it, rushing into the room, all flustered and accidentally embarrassed, but you could tell she loved the spotlight. Then she sat herself down without even being invited, started flirting with one of my friends, and actually asked him for his number, claiming she wanted career advice. Yeah, right? After the guests left, I'd had enough. I pulled her aside and laid it out. This is my house. These are my business relationships. If you keep pulling this kind of crap, you're out. No exceptions. She instantly flipped the switch, tears, guilt, the whole act. I didn't mean to. I'm just trying to fit in, she cried. Of course, that's when my wife walked in, asking what was going on. I didn't want to upset her, so I downplayed the whole thing, told her it was just a misunderstanding. I let Mary off with a warning, but in my mind, that was it. No more benefit of the doubt. Then the texts started ramping up again. Mary was messaging me more often and the tone had shifted. These weren't casual little check-ins anymore. Now it was stuff like, "You're so easy to talk to," or "I feel like you just get me, you know?" It wasn't blatant, but it was creepy. Subtle enough that if I called her out, she could play innocent. But it was clear what she was doing. And once again, just like before, she'd delete the messages after sending them. I'd see the preview on my phone, but when I went back to look, it'd be gone. Like she thought I wouldn't notice. Like I was dumb or something. It pissed me off, but I figured if I kept ignoring her, she'd eventually give up. But that's not what happened. One night, I was working late in my home office. My wife had gone to bed and I figured I'd take a quick break and grab a snack. I walked into the kitchen, flipped on the light, and there she was. Just standing there like she'd been waiting. I didn't say a word. Just turned toward the pantry and started looking for something to eat. That's when I felt it, her hand brushing my arm. I spun around and she was right there. Too close. Staring at me with this weird look that honestly made my skin crawl. "You work so hard," she whispered, her voice low and soft in a way that didn't feel right at all. "I wish I could take care of you." I stepped back, immediately on edge, but she stepped closer. Then she reached out, tried to touch my chest. That was it. I grabbed her wrist, not rough, but firm enough to make it clear I was done playing along. "You've crossed the line," I said, furious and barely keeping my voice steady. Way out of line." She froze. I think she thought I'd just laugh it off or ignore it like before. But I wasn't finished. "I've let your texts slide. I've let your little stunts go. I've let you hang around and disrespect our home. But this? No. This is over. You're packing up and leaving tomorrow morning. And I'm telling your sister everything." Her eyes went wide. She tried to backpedal, started mumbling, "I didn't mean..." But I cut her off. "Don't you dare try to play the victim. Not this time. Get your stuff together. You're out." She tried to spin it, saying she was just lonely, that she didn't mean to make things weird. But I wasn't having it. I walked away without another word and locked myself in my office. I sat there half the night, just going over everything. My blood was boiling. Part of me wanted to march into our bedroom and wake my wife up right then and there. But I didn't. I needed to make sure Mary was gone first, physically out of our house, before I dropped this bomb on my wife. The next morning, I got up like usual and headed to work. But the entire day, my mind was locked on what I had to do when I got home. I was done keeping secrets. Mary had crossed every line, and now it was time to lay it all out and make sure she was out of our lives for good. I got home from work and headed straight into my office to catch up on a few things. Nothing unusual. I was halfway through replying to some emails when I heard my wife's phone ring in the other room. No big deal, her family calls her all the time. I barely noticed it at first until I heard her voice getting louder. She said, "Wait, what? That doesn't even make sense." That stopped me cold. I set my laptop aside and walked into the living room. She was pacing, looking pale, like she'd just seen a ghost. I asked her what was going on, and she just waved me off with a quick, "It's Mary," mouthing the words without taking the phone away from her ear. I sat down, listening, trying to piece together what was happening from her side of the conversation. Something about a confession. Something about guilt. My wife looked more confused and upset with every word. And then, out of nowhere, she stopped pacing and locked eyes with me. "You need to talk to her," she said. She hit the speaker button and suddenly I was hearing Mary's voice, raw and shaky through the phone. "I can't keep this secret anymore," she sobbed. "It's been tearing me up inside. I need to tell you the truth before it destroys me." "What the hell are you talking about?" my wife asked, her voice sharp and clipped. Mary sniffled, then dropped the bomb. "It's your husband and me. We had an affair while I was living with you. He came on to me and I was weak after the breakup. I gave in. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." I went absolutely still. My brain couldn't even register what I was hearing at first. I wasn't just angry, I was shaking. Not just because of the lie, but because of how calm and deliberate she sounded, like she was baring her soul, like she was doing us a favor by unloading this giant pile of garbage. "You've got to be kidding me," I finally said, standing up. There was a beat of silence, and then she doubled down, her voice suddenly steadier. "You can pretend it didn't happen, but we both know it did. I just hope someday you're able to admit the truth to yourself." That's when my wife hung up the phone. We stood there in silence for a second, the room so quiet I could hear the fridge humming. I was pacing, too mad to sit still, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then my wife spoke. "She's lying," she said, flat and firm. I stopped. "You believe me?" I asked. She looked me dead in the eye. "Of course I believe you. This isn't new. She's been pulling crap like this since we were kids. Always lying, always twisting things to make herself the center of attention. I really thought she'd grown out of it, but clearly not. Even though she was standing by me, I could tell the whole thing cut her deep. I mean, her own sister had just accused me, her husband, of cheating. It was insane. And I needed to clear it up once and for all. "Let me show you something," I said. I grabbed my phone, opened up my messages, and showed her the whole conversation history or lack of one. "Look, there's nothing here. Because nothing ever happened. She's making it all up." My wife glanced at the screen and nodded. "I know. But this isn't the end. She's not going to stop. She wants attention so badly, she's willing to burn everything down to get it." Turns out she was right. A few days after the disaster of a phone call, we got another one, this time from my wife's parents. And they weren't calling to ask questions, they were calling to make demands. "We've heard enough," her dad said. "You need to leave that man. He's controlling you and now he's had an affair with your own sister. That's not love, honey. That's abuse." My wife tried to shut it down. "Dad, none of that's true. Mary is lying." But they weren't hearing it. Mary had gotten to them first. She told them I was manipulating everyone, said I was abusive, that I yelled constantly, and get this, that I controlled what food came into the house to assert dominance. I couldn't believe the stuff she was saying. Burnt toast? Apparently, I ruined it on purpose to intimidate them. Grocery shopping? I controlled it to make everyone feel powerless. Shouting from the stairs to ask where my phone was? That counted as verbal abuse, apparently. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so serious. Her parents started blowing up my wife's phone, calls, texts, voicemails, all urging her to pack her things and leave me. They even reached out to my parents, trying to warn them about what kind of man I was. That night, my wife and I sat down and called my folks. We laid it all out, the accusations, the lies, everything Mary had been doing. My parents were furious too, but they were furious at her. Not me. My dad didn't even hesitate. If her parents want to believe that garbage, that's their problem. You don't owe anyone an explanation. We've got your back. And they did. That support meant the world in that moment. But Mary wasn't done. Since her plan to wreck my marriage hadn't worked, she moved on to the next target, my business. My reputation. She knew that in a town like ours, those relationships matter. She knew how much I poured into building trust with people. So she went straight for the jugular. It started subtle. One day, I got a call from William, a longtime friend and business connection. "Hey man," he said, kind of hesitant. "I just ran into your sister-in-law at the coffee shop. She was saying some things about you." I felt my stomach sink. "What kind of things?" He paused. "She didn't outright accuse you of anything, but she implied that things aren't great at home. Said you're controlling, that your marriage is falling apart. Didn't mention cheating, but the vibe was off. I thought I'd ask you directly." I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "Thanks for telling me, William. None of it's true. She's bitter about being asked to leave, and now she's trying to stir the pot." He didn't miss a beat. "I figured. Didn't sound like you at all. Don't worry, I've got your back. But I'll keep an eye on her. She seems like she's looking for trouble." I thanked him, but I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. She'd already tried to blow up my marriage, and now she was trying to poison the very foundation of my life, my work, my reputation, everything I'd built. And this time, I wasn't just angry, I was ready to fight back. Mary knew exactly what she was doing. She was smart, calculated, even, and she understood just how important my relationships were, especially the ones tied to my work. That's where she hit next. The final straw came during a meeting with one of my biggest clients, Thomas. After we wrapped up, he pulled me aside, his face serious but hesitant. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "I don't want to cross any lines here, but someone's been saying stuff about you. I figured you should know." Immediately, I felt my stomach tighten. I asked him to explain, and he sighed before continuing. "Your sister-in-law. She reached out to me directly, said you were under a ton of stress, hinted you weren't handling things well, like the business was slipping. She framed it like she was worried about you, but honestly, felt like she was trying to plant doubt, undermine you. That was it for me. I'd had enough. Mary wasn't just creating drama anymore. She was targeting my livelihood. She thought if she couldn't control the people around her, she'd tear everything down until she got what she wanted. And I wasn't going to let that happen. That night, I sat down with my wife and laid everything out. "She's not just trying to mess with me emotionally," I told her. "She's going after my reputation, talking to friends, clients, anyone who'll listen, twisting things, lying. I can't sit back and let her keep doing this." My wife didn't hesitate. Her jaw tightened and she nodded. "She's gone too far. We need to put a stop to this. For good." We started gathering evidence that night. I reached out to William and Thomas and asked if they'd be willing to document their conversations with her. Emails, texts, anything. They both agreed without hesitation. They were just as fed up with her manipulation as I was. Then I took things a step further. I hired a tech specialist to retrieve all the deleted messages Mary had sent me. And sure enough, they uncovered plenty. Nothing overly explicit, but it was enough to show her pattern. Flirty messages, emotional manipulation, reaching out. then deleting them once she got no response. The intention was obvious. We also had home security footage, specifically from the kitchen that night she cornered me. While it didn't capture the audio, the video told the story well enough. It showed her approaching me, getting too close, me backing away, and finally shutting the situation down. It backed up my version of events and clearly showed her stepping over the line. But we didn't stop there. My wife started calling people old friends, relatives, neighbors. What they told her painted an ugly, consistent picture. Turns out, Mary had a long history of manipulation. Faking illnesses, pretending to be bullied, lying to teachers and family members to make herself the victim or steal attention. She'd been doing this for years. We just hadn't connected all the dots until now. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I told him everything. Mary's false accusations, the deleted messages, her interference with my business contacts. He listened carefully, then gave me the rundown. What she's doing qualifies as defamation, he said. With the evidence you've collected and the impact it's had on your life and business, we've got a strong case. First step is a cease and desist letter. If she keeps it up after that, we go to court. I didn't hesitate. Let's do it. The letter was long, detailed, and firm. It listed every lie, every manipulation, every rumor she'd spread. It warned her to stop immediately and demanded she retract what she'd told others. A week after Mary received the letter, I filed the lawsuit for defamation. My lawyer told me this was necessary, not just to protect my name and career, but to set a clear boundary. This kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated. Not anymore. When Mary found out about the lawsuit, she absolutely lost it. She called my wife in tears, practically begging her to make me stop. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she sobbed. I was just scared for your marriage. I thought he was pulling away from you. My wife didn't budge. You're not scared for us, she told Mary, her voice cold. You're trying to destroy us. And now you're finally facing the consequences. After that, she went quiet, at least for a while. She stopped contacting my clients and friends, probably realizing she'd pushed her luck too far. But the damage had already been done. After months of stress, sleepless nights, and fighting to clear my name, the court finally ruled in our favor. The judge found Mary guilty of defamation and harassment. She was ordered to pay damages, issue formal retractions to everyone she had misled, and was slapped with a restraining order to keep her from contacting either of us again. For the first time in months, my wife and I felt like we could breathe again. But the emotional fallout didn't disappear overnight. Mary's lies had driven a wedge between my wife and her parents, one that wasn't going to be easy to mend. And honestly, after everything, I was done trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. It started right after Mary was served. My wife's phone blew up with calls and texts from her parents. At first, they tried to act sympathetic. This has all just been a misunderstanding, they said. She didn't mean to hurt anyone. But when we didn't respond, their tone changed fast. They couldn't handle the idea that Mary might actually be guilty. Instead of facing the truth, they spun it, put the blame back on me. One night during dinner, her dad called again. My wife sighed, picked up the phone, and hit speaker so I could hear every word. Sweetheart, he said, trying to sound calm and reasonable, I just don't understand why you're doing this. This is family. You don't take family to court. Do you realize what this is doing to all of us? My wife stayed composed, but I could see the pain behind her eyes. Dad, she said evenly, do you even understand what she did? She lied about my husband. She tried to destroy his career, his name, everything. She made up disgusting stories just to get attention. And you expect us to just let that go? Because it's not worth tearing this family apart. My father-in-law snapped, clearly reaching the end of his patience. You two are making this way bigger than it needs to be. You should just sit down, talk it through like adults, and move on. This lawsuit? It's going to destroy everything. That was the moment I spoke up. With all due respect, I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could, this family started falling apart the second you chose to believe Mary's lies over the truth. She's the one who lit this fire, not us. And the damage she's done to my reputation and career? That's not something I can just move on from. He let out a loud, frustrated sigh. You're being dramatic. She made a mistake. Dragging her through court is only going to make it worse. Can't you see how much stress this is putting on your wife? But my wife didn't let that slide. She cut in before I could even open my mouth. No, Dad. What's stressful is you and Mom constantly excusing her behavior. Mary's a grown adult. She made her choices. And this time she's going to face the consequences. Whether you like it or not, this case is moving forward. A few days later, her mom called. She sounded softer, more measured, but the message was the same. Can't we just sit down and talk like a family? She asked gently. We've always been able to work things out. Why does it have to go to court? My wife didn't hesitate. Because talking hasn't worked, she said firmly. Every time we try, she lies. She manipulates. We've given her chance after chance, and all she's done is double down. She left us with no other option. Her mom's voice started to waver. But think of what this is doing to the family. Your sister is heartbroken. She's made mistakes, sure, but she's still your sister. Do you really want to be the reason this family falls apart? I could see my wife's patience thinning. She'd had enough. Mom, the family did fall apart. It fell apart the moment you and Dad chose to believe her over me. You sided with her lies, and now you're blaming us for standing up for ourselves? That's not fair. Her mom started to cry. We just want things to go back to how they were. Can't you see how much this is hurting everyone? My wife's voice was calm but sharp as a blade. No, Mom. You want things to go back because it's easier for you. You'd rather pretend none of this happened than admit you were wrong. But we're done playing that game. If you can't support us, stop calling. When guilt didn't work, they pivoted to threats. Soon, her dad was calling again, this time with a new tactic. Do you even realize how this looks? He said during a heated call. People are going to start wondering if maybe you're the problem. Who sues their sister-in-law? It's going to make your husband look vindictive. Petty. I couldn't hold back. The only person who looks bad is Mary, I said. I've got the evidence. She lied. She harassed us. She sabotaged my work and reputation. If anyone's getting judged, it's her. But he kept pushing. You're forcing your wife to choose. You really want her to pick between you and her family. My wife didn't miss a beat. You already made me choose, she snapped. And I'm choosing my husband. He's the one who stood by me. He's the one telling the truth. If that's too much for you to accept, maybe you're not the family I thought you were. The final straw came when they crossed a line we didn't think they'd dare cross. They showed up at our front door. We were sitting in the living room when there was a knock. I opened it and there they were, her parents, standing stiff and ready for a fight. We need to talk, her mom said, brushing past me like she owned the place. No, we don't, I said flatly. We've been clear. My wife stood up from the couch, arms crossed. What are you even doing here? Her dad jumped right in. We're here to talk some sense into you. This lawsuit's gone far enough and we're not leaving until you agree to drop it. My wife let out a short, bitter laugh. You think you can just barge in here and start making demands after everything you've done? You're lucky we even opened the door. Her mom's voice cracked. Please, honey. She's your sister. She's hurting. Hurting, my wife's voice shot up, raw and angry. Do you know how much we've been hurting? She accused my husband of cheating. She tried to ruin his career. She lied to everyone we know and you backed her. And now you want us to sweep it all under the rug? Absolutely not. I stepped in then. This conversation is over, I said, standing between them and my wife. You can leave or we'll call the cops. That finally got through to them. They left, but it was clear. There was no going back. That night, we made a decision, no more contact with Mary or her parents. None. We tried everything, talks, boundaries, reason, and it all got thrown back in our faces. Once we cut ties, we finally found peace. The case moved forward. And in the end, the court ruled in our favor. Mary was ordered to pay damages, just over $83,000 for the business she cost me. She was also hit with a restraining order and forced to issue retractions to every person she'd lied to. And just like that, the lies caught up to her. People stopped returning her calls. Old friends distanced themselves. Even some of her extended family turned their backs. Eventually, she packed up and moved to another town. Alone. Some folks might think I was being harsh. That maybe I went too far. But the truth is, this is what happens when you push people too far. When you lie, manipulate, and try to ruin lives for your own ego. You want to know what happens when you mess with someone who spent years building a life the right way?